Homicide 1903. The case of 28-year-old Charles Jeremiah Slowe. Charles Slowe was convicted of the murder of 20-year-old Mary Jane Hardwick and sentenced to death. He stabbed her at the Lord Nelson pub on Whitechapel Road, London on Thursday the 24th of September 1903 with a slaughterman's knife. He had been an occasional customer, but Mary Hardwick avoided him and he had been heard to abuse and threaten her. On the 24th of September 1903 he waited until closing time and then stabbed her, saying, "I've got you now." After he ran off, Mary Hardwick's sister chased him and called out for people to stop him, and a man followed him and then called for a policeman to arrest him. Mary Hardwick's sister said that she had no idea why he had attacked Mary Hardwick, adding that Charles Slowe was only an occasional customer and that she had never seen them speaking to each other than when drinks were being ordered. Charles Slowe had been a dock labourer. Mary Hardwick had been from Yeadon in Yorkshire, but had no parents living and lived with her sister, who ran the Lord Nelson public house. The niece of the landlady, who assisted in the management of the pub, said she knew Charles Slowe as a customer, and that on the 23rd of September 1903 that she had been in the saloon outside the counter bar at about 10 p.m, and at about 10:20 p.m. Mary Hardwick, who had been serving behind the bar, came over and spoke to her, saying, "Are you coming in? There is Jerry in the bar," and that she then went into the bar to serve and saw Charles Slowe, who she knew as Jerry, and had a little conversation with him. She said that it had been an incident in March 1903, but that she had been in hospital when it had happened. She said that he stopped until close on 11 p.m. when he went out, noting that closing time was 12:30 a.m. She said that she next saw him a little before midnight when he came into the public bar, and she served him with a glass of ale, at which point Mary Hardwick had been in the saloon bar and not serving. She said that she then came out of the bar where Mary Hardwick was at about 12:15 a.m. and served some other customers in other compartments. She said that her niece, the landlady, then started serving at 12:15 a.m. and that she went and sat in the saloon bar, at which time Charles Slowe came into the passage from the bar into the private bar, the compartment next to where she was. She said that she could see him and saw that he had a glass of shandy bitter that the landlady had served him, and noted that Charles Slowe would have been able to see both her and Mary Hardwick, noting that she knew so as she saw him looking into the saloon bar. She said that after he was served the shandy bitter, that he stood drinking it and then went down the passage and out of the house at about 12:20 a.m. The landlady's niece said that she knew that she was giving the right time, as they kept clocks 5 minutes fast in the house. She said that it was then about closing time, as she noted a barman preparing to close the house, and said that she saw Mary Hardwick get up and go down the passage on the public side. She said that she then went and stood in the private bar, and that she then next heard a scream. She said that she then ran down the passage and out of the house and saw the landlady chasing Charles Slowe. She said that she next saw the landlady and Charles Slowe outside the Lord Nelson and next to a shop in the street, with the barman following Charles Slowe, and then saw Charles Slowe try to strike the barman. She said that she then ran into the public house and saw Mary Hardwick on her face on the ground, after which a doctor arrived. The barman, who was a tobacco cutter who lived at the Lord Nelson public house and assisted with the management there, said that he knew Charles Slowe as a customer. He said that he saw him at about 12:20 a.m. when he walked out of the public bar and went down the passage into the private bar. He said that a man was bringing him the gates to close the pub, at which time Charles Slowe was stood outside the window of the shop next door. He said that he then saw him turn down the passage towards the private bar and then lost sight of him, but then heard a scream, and that when he turned he saw Charles Slowe leave the public bar and go into the street. He said that the landlady then called out to him, "Catch him and kill him," and that he then went and tried to get Charles Slowe by the throat outside Millwood's shop, but said that he had been wearing a handkerchief that had slipped, and that Charles Slowe then knocked his arm up with his left hand and struck him on the jaw with his right, which staggered him a bit, after which Charles Slowe ran across the road. He said that he followed him down East Mount Street and then along Raven Row, after which Charles Slowe turned into Cotton Street and then crossed the road and went back into Raven Row again, after which he walked into Bedford Street, where he turned around to him and said, "What do you want?" The barman said that he said, "Never mind what I want," and that he continued to follow him into Oxford Street, where he met a policeman and asked him to arrest Charles Slow. He said that when he saw the policeman, that he said to him in Charles Slow's hearing, "I want this man," and that the policeman asked, "What for?" and that he said, "Assault," and he said that Charles Slow then turned around and said, "I'm going home to my lodgings." But he said to the policeman, "Will you bring him back to the Lord Nelson?" At which point the policeman took hold of Charles Slow and they went back. He said that when he got back to the Lord Nelson, he found Mary Hardwick on the floor in the bar. The knife that Charles Slow had used was later identified as belonging to a slaughterer that had lived in Devons Row, Bow. He said that he was employed by Harrison the barber in Winthrop Street, Whitechapel, and that he had seen Charles Slow there before when he had come in to see his friend, who was also employed there. He said that he had been using the knife on the 23rd of September 1903, after which he washed his knife and put it in his pouch and went off to the Grave Morris public house, but that when he got back it was gone. He said that he had gone out between 12 and 12:30 p.m, and that when he had returned at 12:30 p.m, the knife was gone. He noted that he used to leave the knife in a pail of water, stating that they could not hold the knives otherwise. At the trial, Charles Slow's defence attempted to reduce the charge to manslaughter, stating that there was no evidence of premeditation and suggested that Charles Slow had been madly in love with Mary Hardwick and had become angered because she had spurned him and that he had struck her in a moment of passion. When Charles Slow was sentenced to death, the judge said, "May the Lord have mercy on your soul," and Charles Slow, who was noted for having maintained an indifferent demeanour throughout the trial, said, "I shall meet him without fear." Charles Slow was executed at Pentonville on the 23rd of September 1903. The Dundee Evening Post on Thursday the 1st of October 1903 reported on what was described as an epidemic of crime, saying that September had a terrible record for crime across London and the provinces, and suggested that it might be connected with the weather, as criminal statistics seemed to show that there was always a rise during depressing weather, and noted that that year had been the wettest on record. The report noted that there was always an increase in criminal activity directly the late autumn months were entered into. Numbers quoted for murders were 11 and 17 for September and October, compared to 8 and 10 for July and August.